If you doubt Hashem, it doesn't work out well for you. That was the lesson that we learned in Parshas Shalach, as the Meradlim came back with a negative report, even though God told them that the land was to be great. They doubted, they wept, and many people died. Parshas Korach follows that narrative, but in a little bit of a different way. It teaches that not only do you not doubt Hashem, but you don't doubt his leaders. You don't doubt Moshe Rabbeinu. So when Korach decides this week to incite a mutiny, challenging Moshe's leadership and his decision-making, we get to watch as it begins to unravel for the Moshe doubters. It's important in every parsha, but most definitely in Parshas Korach, that you look at it with adult eyes, that you learn it anew, that you remember that this isn't a child's story, a folk tale, but incredibly influential, clear-thinking, and God-focused Jews that are deliberating, arguing over very fine and precise rules and decision-making. This week, I want to use one nugget from one Rashi that explains where Korach went wrong and use it as a catalyst to elaborate upon this nugget and to show how it may very well be the greatest challenge to a Jewish person's hatzlacha, their success, and everything that they do every day of their lives. And that's not an exaggeration. So we begin where all things begin, which is at the very beginning. Rashi dibar hamaschil dasan va'aviram, when he's explaining who and why did these fellows start a mutiny. Dasan va'aviram were included, says Rashi, bishvil shaya shevet Ruven. Dasan and Aviram joined Korach because they were from the tribe of Ruven. Sharui b'chani yasam teimana, shachein likahas ubanab hachainim teimana. They lived in a neighborhood that was immediately adjacent to the tribe and neighborhood of Korach. Nishtatfu im Korach b'machalakatoi. For this reason, they became partners in this machlokas. O l'Rasha, woe to the evil one, and O l'shcheno, an old phrase of Chazal. That Nebuch, it's so tragic that a Russia gets involved in the things that the Russia gets involved in, but almost doubly woe, just as woe, not woe in a good way, but woe in a bad way, is it to somebody who hangs around with a Russia because they just get schlepped. They just get included, almost against their will, it sounds like, when, because of their mere proximity to evil, they also get involved in evil. That's why it's Dasan and Aviram were included, because they were in the very next door neighborhood to Korach. Then Rashi continues, and this is where we'll focus. Uma ra'a Korach lachalok in Moshe. What did Korach see? Where did he go wrong? Almost every evil villain has a moment in any story that sets them off. When they were disregarded, humiliated, a moment where they have a reckoning and they come to themselves and they're overtaken with some emotion, some new goal or ideology has now taken over their heart, and they become red in the eyes and angry and drunk with some emotion in order to become that villain and create something evil. So what happened? Where did Korach go rogue? What did he see that caused him to launch a mutiny and to divide himself away from the camp of Moshe? Rashi says, Niskane al nesiuso shel Elitzafon ben Uziel. He was envious of the princely dignity that was held by Elitzafon ben Uziel. The story was, Rashi explains, Moshe had appointed him the prince over the sons of Kahas, although this was exactly the right thing to do because it was expressed by God in a clear commandment to anoint him. Korach argued, my father and his brothers were 4 in number, as it says, and the sons of Kahas were Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, and Uziel. As to Amram, the eldest, his 2 sons have themselves assumed high dignity, one as the king and the other as the Kohen Gadol. Who is entitled to receive the second or the next rank to it? Is it not I? Am I not next in line for some highly sought-after role? To be the vice president of operations, the president, the founder, the vice president? Who? I am the son of Yitzhar, the second of Amram's brothers. And yet, Moshe, you've appointed as prince the sons of Amram's brothers, who was the youngest of all of them. You skipped me. You disregarded me. The league done messed me up. I hereby protest against him, and I will undo his decision. Sounds like Korach does have a claim. You have to meet someone where they are. He's saying something that does make sense, and if you were in his position, don't you think it would hurt? And we're not just arguing over some Lay's chips in the lunchroom. We're arguing over one of the greatest honors, one of the greatest actions that you could be called upon to do in life. So Korach's hurt. So he launched a mutiny. But when you boil the entire thing down, where did Korach go wrong? He has a claim. Maybe we should ask that when someone had a claim, back I believe in Parshas Ba'aloscha, when people didn't get a chance to do the Korban Pesach, they had a claim and they were listened to. We didn't get to do Lama Nigara, Revolt, the Korban Hazeh. We didn't get to do the Korban Pesach. We were Tameh, Lenefesh Adam. We were doing something good, and you kind of skipped over us. What was the answer? Moshe said, I'll go talk to Hashem, and Hashem said, give him a second Pesach. Give him an opportunity. Good Gezok, you said good. Why here does Korach just get stopped out and literally swallowed? Because of the very, very beginning of Rashi. You don't have to wonder where Korach went wrong. You only need to see the first 7 words of this Rashi to understand the rest of it and how Korach has gone wrong. The answer is he went wrong because the very words say Neskane on the Siuso Shel Elitzophan ben Uziel. It came and it was induced by Korach's envious envy of the priestly dignity of Elitzophan ben Uziel. He was jealous. What launched the mutiny was jealousy, was the looking over his shoulder and seeing that someone else has something that I don't, and everything else, no matter good or evil, is nothing other than a child from a bad origin. Everything else, no matter how pure the action is like a great action of a mamzer. It comes from kinna, a bad midah. So even though Korach came forward with a valid claim, with real backing, think about who he comes forward with. He comes forward with an entire Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah, holy people, 250 distinguished members of the community. A Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah that doesn't even fit in a room. They have great long white beards with unbelievable tainas. Halachic inquiries, questions, maybe even honesty, deep, penetrating questions, valid claims. But it all was treif. That's what the Torah is telling us. We can't say this, we can't make this up, but we can read what the words say. It was born from jealousy. The genesis was jealousy. Was bad midos. And this gives us the nugget that we're looking for to be the catalyst of the jealousy rant. It's a rant that comes from Reb Aaron Lopiansky. He says it with clear chachma in his sefer, the Ben Aliyah, the Path of Aliyah, which is really the modern day manual for steiging, a modern day Mesilas Yesharim, if you will. And what he says is that every person, quoting from Maharal, has different struggles. You have a goof, very physical struggles. Anyone who's trying to do good in life has to eventually meet themselves in the mirror and then say no to the physical urges, goof challenges. But there's something deeper that also challenges a person's steiging. There's nefesh problems. There's emotional health problems. What we call, such as ambition, either having too much of it or too little of it. Greed, having too much of it, too little. These aren't goof problems. These are what the Maharal calls nefesh problems. And one of the most prominent nefesh problems is called kinna, it's called jealousy. Jealousy, to you and to me, before you hear what Rabbi Lopansky explains from the Maharal and from the Even Ezra, you'll think it's only nogea, only practical when your friend has a cooler Tesla than you, a cooler wife than you, or a cooler house than you, or a cooler paycheck than you. But it's not so. It's not so. For if it was so, then the following pasuk would make no sense. Listen to here. As King Shlomo HaMelech says about jealousy in Perek Daled pasuk Dal. V'shavdi ani ve'eretz kol ha'akoshin asher nasen tachas hashomesh v'nei dimas ha'ashukim ve'ein lahem menachem. I further observed all the oppression that goes under the sun, the tears of the oppressed. Then I accounted those who died long since more fortunate than those who are still living. And happier than either are those who have not yet come into being. Shlomo HaMelech and Koheles, Perek Daled Pasuk Aleph Beis and Gimel, is lamenting some of the challenges of life. And then he says in Perek Daled Pasuk Daled, V'ro'isi ani eskol omal ve'eskol kishron hamaisa. I have also noted that all labor, that all skillful enterprise comes, all kol kishron hamaisa ki hi kinas ishmeri ehu. All skillful enterprise, all attainment, it comes from people's envy of one another. Gam zeh hevel re'us ruach. All skillful enterprise, all accomplishment, it is all another futility and a pursuit of nothingness that stems from jealousy. Even Ezra explains. A Peladika Even Ezra explains. Every word liquid gold. V'ra'isi rov amal ha'adam. Gam kishrin ma'aseyam. Ba'avur b'nei ha'adam. What is most people's actions? It's only for the sake of b'nei adam sheyakanu zeh bo zeh. People are constantly jockeying with each other for status. V'yirtza lehispoer. I want to be validated. I want to be looked at special. Al chavero. I want to be better than my friend. V'shelo yiyehu chaser mimenu b'yiridasoi b'ma'busoi u'banov v'ma'choloi v'chachmasoi v'teiv Hashem. Everything we do is because we don't want to look worse than our friends. We don't want to be less than them in our clothing. He wears Versace, so it's going to look weird if I'm wearing Aeropostale. His kids go to Grubner's, Brudney's, Stein's, Newman's, Brisk. My kids go to, not as good. His food, you know what they have for dinner every night? I got to feel better than, or at least I got to feel like I don't even care about it, so I am better than them. But it's a comparison factor. The Chachmaso, he's learning twice a day he has Siddharim. I have to learn, because I can't feel bad about myself because of how good he's doing. Chachmaso v'toiv Hashem, how come he gets shlishi? I don't want shlishi. How come friends buy him Chassan Torah and no one buys me Chassan Torah? I need to do something that's going to get me a better name. Kol zeh hevel or us ruach. What a damning and condemning observation about the nature of humans. That all of their attainment, all of their hatzlacha is nothing more, to Shlomo HaMelech does it seem, is nothing more other than somebody trying to get a step ahead in status and in class than his friend. Kina. Jealousy. Looking over their shoulder and comparing yourself with what drives it. A terrible indictment of humanity. That our actions and our accomplishments are nothing other than an outgrowth of jealousy. Somebody, I'll prove this in a more modern and contemporary way, as per how Rabbi Lopiansky explained this. If you want to ask someone, you want to talk about your success now, and you want to talk about my success now, let's talk about it. Are you a smart person? Well, how does the modern world think about smart? What's the definition of smart? You immediately jump to saying, well, in my class, I'm one of the smarter. That's comparing. The classic IQ system, which works on a bell curve to constantly keep the median of society around 100. If you're part of the upper 50%, more than half, then you're smart, people will say. If you're lower in the IQ test, that means you're less smart than the average folk. Then you have a low IQ. But it's totally based upon society and where you fit. Do you have money? Are you wealthy? Yes, you listening now in the earphone. Well, if you compare yourself immediately to what your friends have, that's probably how you're going to come up with whether or not you find yourself wealthy. You're not able to say, based on your own understanding, you have to immediately judge your personal growth in a comparative way with the rest of humanity. We evaluate ourselves based on how we evaluate others. It almost seems like there is no objective evaluation for some of these qualities in society. But it's not what the Torah wants. It's not what the Torah wants. It's kina. That's kol zeh hevel re'os ruach. That's Korach-like. When you compare whether or not you're rich, or whether or not you were anointed as the new Cohen or new Levi, based on if someone else has it. That's Korach-like. What we need is to establish in our lives an independent framework of a reference for self-evaluation, for our midos, for our Torah, for our status, for our money, for our possessions, for our love, for our avodah. It needs to be an independent, self-imposed evaluation between, I'll tell you, between who? How should the evaluation be? What does the Torah say? Lefikach nivra adam yechidi. Lefikach kol echad ve'echad chayiv lo yimar b'shvili nivra ha'olam. The remedy to perceive the real self-worth, says Rabbi Lopiansky, citing Gemaras and Maharals and Chazal, the way to perceive real self-worth and valid self-esteem is to clarify what a proper definition of self is. And what is the proper definition of self? That each person is not a species. Humans are not a species like an animal. Man was created, each person is his own species. Man was created as an individual, and he should derive pleasure from his self-definition. And Hashem said that to each person, you're to get a mission, you're to get a toolbox of talents. You are to be assessed as to how you are fulfilling this mission. And it should not be compared. Your success has nothing to do with anyone else. In a person's fetal stage, Masechta Nida tells us that you don't leave the womb until an oath had been administered. Umanhi Ashvua, each person needs to swear before they start in this world. Shemash Bieno so tehi tzadik v'alti rasha, be righteous. Be righteous. They tell you before you go into this world, there's a lot of distractions. Little kid, be righteous. Don't be wicked. Va'afilu kol ha'olam kulo omrim l'cho tzadik atah. Even if the whole world will anoint you as the tzadik hador. Hoya be'einecha kerasha. in your eyes, you stay humble and you can evaluate yourself as a Rasha, meaning there's more work to be done. You're to address yourself in a personal context. Because even if the society surrounding you claims that you're righteous, you must be prepared to assess yourself based on your own context. Your own personal relationship between you and Hashem is the only thing that matters. Between you and what God gave you, the definition of a person's success. Like, whoa. The definition of a person's success is the percentage of each person's mission, which he accomplishes, is the measure of your success. When you evaluate yourself between you and God, when you realize that you're the only person in the world, and God gave you gifts, and you have a job to do, and that job may be bigger than everyone else's, or it might be less than everyone else's. When you live in your own world and you evaluate, let's read it again, the percentage of each person's mission, which he accomplishes, is the measure of who he is. V'zeh kol ha'adam. Self-evaluation. Zero looking over the shoulder. Zero comparativeness in a way to figure out how wealthy or how strong you are. No. If a goal is strength, and you look at your potential and your strength, and you're naturally a weak person, the amount towards what you are capable of in truth and in earnestness, that is how great you are in your strength. Based on your brain, you're to be evaluated. Based on your gifts and your struggles, you are to be evaluated. It's a landmark for Hatzlacha. It's a signpost. So much of our suffering and our struggling is because as soon as we see what others have Hatzlacha, their Gemara learning, their questions, their financial success, their Hatzlacha and their family, it almost relates to us when we compare whether or not we have it, and that's treif. It has nothing to do with your Hatzlacha. Your Hatzlacha is the percentage of each person's mission which he accomplishes is the measure of who he is. There's a Mishnah that says it blatantly. Rabbi Lopiansky shows us this. And you heard the Mishnah a million times, but you probably will never hear it the same way after this. Ben Zoma Omer. Ezehu Chacham. Let's assess success. Who's the wise man in the room? Haloimi Mikol Adam. He who learns from everyone. Who is the strong person? He who conquers his inclination. Who is a wealthy person? He who is happy with his lot. When you break down the Mishnah, it kind of feels like Ben Zoma is telling you coping tactics, as if you're not really that smart, so try to get as much as you can from others. You're not really that strong, so do the best you can. You don't really have that much money, and the guy next to you has got a way bigger house on 4-acre parcel with a pool in the back, and you got this dinky little ranch, so you know what, let's try to be focused on us so that we can feel better about ourselves. No. What Ben Zoma is doing is he is showing how a person, when he's not comparing his Hatzlacha, but when a person understands that the truth of his wisdom is how much he maximizes trying to gain wisdom from others, that he's in his own world where he needs to become the smartest he can, the strongest that he can, the happiest that he can, and he derives his self-definition with nothing else other than what he can, with his levels, attain. When he gives each person of us an individual mission and an individual toolbox for us to do the best that we can, it reads, the statement of Ben Zoma is so deep because it restructures how you evaluate yourself. Hashem and you. That's it. Hashem stands in the center and you're with Hashem. And you are the sole purpose for creation. Everything that Hashem gives you is a tool. If there's chachma coming your way, then grab it. No tool extra, no tool missing. See yourself in the world with Hashem. So you grab wisdom. You view your strength and your wealth in the proper way. Korach should have measured himself this way. Korach should have measured himself based on his capabilities. Look how great of a man Korach was. He was a pikeah. He was a wise man. He was one of the highest ranking officers in the court of Hashem. And look how great of a leader he was. He was able to get together rabble-rousers to convince people to go against Moshe. You can imagine how brave and how charismatic Korach must have been. But if only he would have measured his hatzlacha based on his capabilities. If only he would have assessed himself in the Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam between me, what I'm capable of, and what God has given me. But instead, he got swallowed up by the earth because he was neskane al kahunasoi shel alitzafon. He was neskane al nesiusa shel alitzafon ben Uzziah. We have to develop healthy and realistic self-worth. We have to constantly work on our inner worlds, that it's between me and God. We have to constantly nail down that my learning is based on how good of a head I have and how much I have the ability to push myself. It has nothing to do with anyone else. My strength in business is based upon what I have the ability to do, what type of work ethic I have, what kind of prayer I have. It has nothing to do with what anyone else has. My ruchnius, my gashmius, between me and Hashem, between what God has given me the potential to accomplish and the percentage of what I have yet accomplished, that's who I am. That's my hatzlacha. If I'm not accomplishing as much as I know that I can, then musar and hard work and new goals need to be set. And maybe rebuke needs to be had. But that's between man and God and man and himself. It has nothing to do with anyone else. What Yenim's parnasa, Yenim's wedding, Yenim's tefillah, Yenim's kids, Yenim's spouse. Yenim means other people's. It's in a different world. It has zero to do with me. But Nebuch, for most people, it's actually what drives all of their accomplishments. Just wanting status and wanting to look good in the neighborhood chat or in other people's eyes. How do we do this? It's from standing alone with God in prayer. Being alone with God. Being honest with ourselves. Being earnest with ourselves. It's with quiet musar sessions. It's with these personal, honest time periods. Musar and tefillah. Alone with your Gemara. Alone by yourself. Assessing yourself. And a practical thing to do, Rabbi Lupiansky suggests actually doing good things and not letting anyone else know about them. To help the general perspective shift, perform good deeds that go unnoticed by others. I'll do a cold turkey and just forget what anyone else thinks because we naturally care what other people think, and it also drives us to create good things for us, and you got to be normal and healthy, but slowly to put an emphasis on that it's not for other people. I enjoy that other people think that I'm good and I'm learning good. That feels great and that's a natural emotion, but that the real goal is something deeper, and with honesty, we move forward with a healthy, realistic sense of self-worth that is based on between me and God, and that is it. And that was the nugget. That was the catalyst for the jealousy rant. That Korach should have measured himself based on his capabilities and his potential, and he would have seen maybe where he needed improvement or how much that he actually had. Because of his fatal flaw of neskane al nesiuso shel alitzafon ben Uzziah, it was nothing else born other than the origin and genesis of jealousy. That's why things went catastrophically wrong. And the musar for us is that don't make the same mistake that Korach did. Don't build your life's goals based on what other people have, want, or care about. Don't look over your shoulder to see what other people have to judge your success. Never. Never. But instead, always remember that Hashem gave each one of us an individual mission, an individual goal, an individual toolbox of talents and assets for us to accomplish that mission. And the percentage of each person's mission, which he accomplishes, is the measure forever of who he truly is.